Hey, how's it going? Um, I'm basically doing the video because I just started learning about all these different kinds of things, and it's opened my mind to a whole lot. And it's kind of some of the stuff that I thought was just most important. I realized is actually meaningless now. So I'm doing the video just to basically so I can keep track of where I am, and so that I can continue get some feedback from whoever's watching to let me know their thoughts because I think it's good to get some different thoughts from different people. So this first video that I'm gonna do is actually I'm doing it on stories in the Bible. Mm, Stories in the Bible is basically just to say what I think about it and maybe get some feedback from others. Well, maybe some footnotes, the side notes about anything else, but the main topic, down to when you get to the core of it, the main topic will be the Bible. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the Adam and Eve myth. Now, for pretty much everybody, I'm assuming that you're familiar with the Adam and Eve myth, but if you're not, I'm gonna, quickly give you a run through of what it is. All right. Supposedly, God created Adam and Eve as the first people on earth. He sent them and gave them the world, told them they had to tend to the Garden of Eden. The only thing he asked was that they do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But a serpent came, convinced Eve to eat from the fruit, and Eve then convinced Adam to eat from the fruit. Now, that's the basic outline of this story. You could get into more detail, but nothing I said, I'm really not going to get into that. But my point is, God told Adam and Eve if they ate from the tree, they would surely die. Now, my question is, why didn't they die? Since they didn't die, you'd have to assume that God was lying. And the question comes up, why? Why would he lie about this? Why would he lie to get them not to have it? And the my answer would be that for some reason he did not want them to have knowledge of good and evil. So he did not want them to have knowledge. But as you further read on, it'd say that as he ate from the tree, their eyes were opened and they realized that they were naked. So with this newfound knowledge, Adam and Eve discovered that they were naked, and God did not, for some reason, did not want them to have any kind of knowledge. You'd have to ask yourself, why didn't he not want that? In in pose, I'd say that he did not want that because one, he did not want them to be very smart. But then again, a question came to me with that question that said, why did he not want them to be smart? And my answer to that was so that he could enslave them. You cannot you cannot enslave somebody who's just as smart as you. The most you could do is leave them be. But in the story, the serpent told them that they would have knowledge if they ate from the tree, and the serpent did not lie. But however, God did. He lied, told them that they would die, and they didn't. Instead, they found this newfound knowledge. But with that knowledge, God supposedly he punished them. He said, Eve, Eve, childbearing shall be hazardous. Adam, you'd have to work for the fruit, for food, and the serpent, I'll cut off your arms and legs, and you'd have to now live on your belly. But with this, he also stated that, behold, man has become as one of us. So I think it's safe to say that instead of dying, Adam and Eve got intelligent, intelligence to the point where they could not no longer be God's servant. Now, this story is symbolically similar to the story of Prometheus and Zeus. Now, everybody knows Zeus was basically the highest god of their time, whether it was Greek or Roman. I'm not really sure. I think it may have been both. But Zeus was the highest god, and Prometheus was another god who he he actually sought to help people, help mankind. What he did was he hid he had a piece of meat and he hid it inside an ox and wanted them to and he on the other hand he also had bones and he put them inside of fat. Now what happened? Zeus wanted Zeus wanted them to sacrifice the ox to him while they could do whatever they wanted to with the bones and fat. The bones and fat was actually not helpful at all, while the meat inside the ox was nourishing. So you can see why Zeus wanted the people to sacrifice the ox while they kept bones and fat and did whatever. But what they actually did was they ate the meat and they burned the bones. So as you can see, Zeus Zeus was pretty pissed off about this. He wasn't gonna exactly just let that fly. And what Prometheus did, he also brought fire. He stole fire in a giant fennel stalk and he brought it to the people and he basically taught them a whole lot of things, symbolically also giving them knowledge. And this all this basically did was piss Zeus off more because man was becoming smarter, and if once they became smart enough they'd be as God. So Zeus, being the top god of his time, he saw it fit to punish Prometheus. What he did was he chained him to a rock, had a giant eagle eat at his liver for all of eternity. Only by nightfall he would regenerate regenerate his body parts, and the eagle will come back and do it all again, never to be stopped. Now the story goes on to Hercules saving Prometheus, but that I'm not getting into all of that. I'm getting the part I wanted to actually stay at is the intelligence. When Prometheus, you can see in this time also Zeus did not want people to have intelligence. Now that's a common theme that once they get intelligent, they sort of separate or spread out or leave the gods because they don't need them anymore. They have intelligence. Once they get intelligence, honestly, God doesn't really, you don't really need their God anymore, the gods that force themselves upon you. When you look at the story of Jesus, this gets you thinking even more. Because first, when you look back, Jesus in the New Testament and Joseph of the Old Testament have, well, they have a lot of similarity. It's like Joseph was created from Jesus, or Jesus was created from Joseph. They were like they started out trying to be the same aspect, I would say, for a lack of words. They both came from like a miracle birth. Joseph had 12 brothers. Jesus had 12 disciples. Joseph sold for 20 pieces of silver. Jesus sold for 30 pieces of silver. Judah, Joseph's brother Judah suggested sale, and Jesus' disciple Judas suggested sale, and both of them began work at 30. It's weird to me. That's something I just thought I'd point out because it was weird. But then again, when you look at Jesus, the first thing I really think about now when I think of Jesus is the ancient Commission story of Horus. Because when you think about Horus, it's almost like it is exactly alike, but Horus is about 30, not 30, I'm sorry, 3000 BC. But Jesus, he's no older than I'd say about 2000 years old because that's when AD starts. But when you look at Horus, he was also born December 25th from the Virgin Isis. Three kings followed the east star to his birth spot. He was a teacher at 12. There was missing 18 years of his life. Baptized by a reap, a right. I think his name is. I know I'm saying that wrong, but he was baptized at 30. He traveled with 12 disciples, crucified, rose after 3 days. But surprisingly, he's not the only story like this. There's also you could look this up. You could look this up if you feel like it. I'll spell it for you and all. There was also Attis from Greece. Her name is Attis, and she was the Greek story from about 12,000 BC, 1200 BC. There's Krishna of India, Krishna, from about 900 BC. There was Dionysus of Greece, Dionysus, from about 500 BC, and Mithra of Persia, Mithra, Persia, from about 1200 BC. Now, the truth about all of them is they're actually personified versions of the sun. Jesus, Horus, Attis, Krishna, Dionysus, and Mithra are all actually the sun in their own culture. The stories about them have actually a lot to do with astronomy. You may be thinking, how is that possible? But I'm gonna decode that a little bit for you. Now, they all say that they were born on the 25th, December 25th, or as you call it, Christmas. But let me tell you what this is. The three stars in Orion's belt line up with Sirius, the star of the east, and they point to where the sun will rise December 25th. That's why they basically indicate that the sun was born, not the sun, the prophet was born the 25th, because this actually has a lot to do with it. And on the 22nd, after 6 months, the sun keeps going down, and this would symbolize death to the cultures because it changed the season. All the plants would basically die. So it'd go down, but on December 22nd, the sun will reach its lowest point in the sky. But it's strange because it would stop moving for 3 days, symbolized as the prophet died for 3 days. But again, after 3 days, this something weird happens and it moves north 1 degree. And this would foreshadow longer days and whatnot. So this is basically where they got the stories from Jesus and the others, all of the others basically. And the 12 disciples, these are actually the easiest, the simplest. You're probably thinking right now, yeah, I know what that is, but the 12 disciples are the 12 constellations of the sun, or zodiac signs, or months of the year. This is what all of these actually are. So there you go, decoded it a little bit for you. Now, with that, you can see that a lot of things in the Bible are actually duplicates, copies, clones, or whatever you like to call it. But they're not the first thing. But the thing is, the originals knew. The Egyptians, ancient Egyptians, or Cometians, because the original name of Egypt was Kemet. They knew that most of these stories were false. So all they did, they believed that stories where the gods cannot be interpreted on a human level. The human mind cannot interpret a god. So they put them as human as possible so that they can get as close to an understanding as possible. But some of the stories, such as Noah's Ark, was it's found in a whole bunch of other legends, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh. And Moses, he was actually he actually came from the Egyptian story Myces, and more of the same name was Minos and Manu in India. Minos and Crete. Nah, never heard of that, but okay. And such things such as the Ten Commandments. All of these things were done before. The Ten Commandments were actually standardized from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where he says that like I have not committed murder, and that says thou shalt not murder. They transformed it into that. Now, Justin Martyr, JustinMartyr. This was he was a Christian historian from, I think it was about like 100 AD. I'm not too sure. I think it was about that. I think I remember it from like that time, around that time frame. But he realized that there were a whole bunch of similarities in a whole bunch of different religions. But I what I'm assuming is he was the first one to say this. He said that the devil did it. Satan did it. Satan, whether you want to believe he went back in time or went back in time, as I've heard before, he went back in time and put stories out there. But when I think about that, I'm thinking, okay, if he did that, wouldn't he just actually be putting the story out ahead of time so that there wouldn't be a need for Jesus Christ or whoever? Yeah, just something to think about there. I personally didn't get it, but I don't know. Maybe somebody else can come up with an answer and for me or whatever. Because I don't see why. First, how is that possible? Then why is that possible? Then why would why would he do it? And then again, why is there no mention of it anywhere? While we're on the subject, let's talk about Satan a little bit. The devil. First, first, Satan. This is a really, I assume it's kind of like a subliminal thing, because all of a sudden, if you take the D from devil, it spells evil, and if you add an O to God, it spells good. But Satan is actually, it's a Hebrew noun. It's actually a word in Hebrew that means to oppose or obstruct. It's I to oppose or obstruct. It's kind of like just, so basically what it is just the opposite of something, not necessarily bad unless you're making it bad. But I think I believe that the reason people are afraid of Satan is because so far what they hear is he's the ruler of this underworld. You either have a choice to either go into heaven or go into hell, and if you go into hell, you go to this underworld and just be tortured for all eternity. But first, you have to ask yourself: is any of this really real? I mean, I strongly don't believe it is. Maybe there's some other kind. There's some other. Don't get what I'm saying. Don't take me wrong. Maybe there is. I'm not doubting that there's some kind of God or figure that fits the description of God somewhere. But I strongly don't think that the God of the Bible is him. Now there's one more thing I'd like to talk about. It's a man named Thomas Paine. ThomasPaine. Now he had a quote, and I'm gonna read this to you. The quote says, "The Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which they put a man called Christ in the place of the sun, and pay him the adoration originally paid to the sun." Now, what I took this as is, when you Christians are actually worshiping, giving worship to the sun through another, through with a middleman, I guess you could say. Like, there was in Kemet there was actually a pharaoh who he started. He said, you know what? This is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pay respects to the God, and all of you will pay respects through me. You will worship me as I worship the God. That's basically what I got out of that. Now I say all that to say that don't let anybody, don't let me, don't let your religion, don't let anybody, whatever you may read, whatever you may see, don't let anything or anybody determine for you what you believe. Everything you have, just gather information, come to your own judgment on everything. But take as much information as you can. And I think, personally, I think it helps to know the other side as well as the side that, I think it helps to know the side that you're against as well as the side that you're with to help you make a better judgment call on what would help on your decision. Peace and love.